All right, and I think we're ready to go. So let me just switch over to the group pair view and we should be good. Hey, there we go. Welcome to another edition of the Coding Zeal stream with yours truly, Talk to Me Gooseman, or Eric Guzman in real life. And I am joined with Trevor and Conroy, also from Coding Zeal. Welcome, guys. Say
Hello,
hello.
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 Uh,
Hello, I'm stoked to be here. Thanks for having me.
awesome. This is great. And so if you could kindly introduce yourselves, we'll start with Conroy.
Sure. Hi, I'm Conroy. I am a software engineer with Zeal. Let's see. I guess I've been off and on with the company for like maybe 5 years or so. When I joined Zeal, I was not a good programmer, and I don't know why they hired me. um, but that's one of the reasons why I'm here today. The bridging the gap philosophy. I definitely owe a lot of my career to very key kind of like moments where I came in at a certain level and then kind of was brought up to a higher level. So that's a very important thing to me. I know that I've benefited a lot from that. So I'm always looking for ways to do that and give back.
And I am Trevor, co-founder of Zeal. I'm also the CXO, the Chief Experience Officer. So something I'm always focused on is creating amazing experiences for people. And one of the issues that we face in this industry is that the gap, the sort of barrier to entry gets larger and larger and larger as the years go by. And so we decided to make this a big initiative of Zeal's to help bridge the gap. So it's actually one of our 5 core principles is to bridge the gap. So I'm excited to be here and have this discussion with you today, guys.
Awesome. Yeah, so that is the main reason we're having this conversation today and for this month is we go by themes every month. And this month's theme is bridging the gap. So, and that's why we're having this conversation. So internally, we were having conversations about what can we do us individually, throwing around ideas of like what is bridging the gap, how can we bridge the gap, and then I was like, it came to me like, well, these type of conversations that we're having internally, why don't we have these type of conversation externally and bring in the rest of the Twitch community and development community, and it doesn't even have to be a development community, honestly, it can be anyone in on the conversation so they can provide their input and just listen to and also listen from us and hear our opinions and I guess it's always more comfortable to hear what other people think instead of just your own, because you're not alone in your own thoughts and your own opinions. So yeah, this is why we're here today. So I wanted to start off with so bridging the gap off of based off the official Coding Zeal website, and what we believe in is we value experience and expertise, and we also value helping to bridge the skill gap for those just starting out. But I wanted to pose this question to you, Trevor, and you, Conroy. Personally, what is your personal definition of bridging the gap for you? And we'll start off with Trevor.
Okay. So my personal, you said definition, like what it means to me?
Yeah, what it means to you.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I have personally had a lot of mentors, people who took a vested interest in helping me grow and learn and sort of get to the next level. And I truly believe that is something that you need to continue to pass on. That's how we grow. We stand on each other's shoulders and further our knowledge set, further our learning. We learn from each other. And so our ability to take our knowledge and expertise and share it with others and specifically working to help people move into this industry and progress through the levels to the point where they can be not just a massive contributor, but someone who maybe potentially helps with that next innovation, right? And helps move the world forward. And so, that's sort of the big ambitious idea behind it, but the goal being to just reach out and lend a hand to somebody and say, hey, listen, like, yeah, I'm up here on this platform with this knowledge base, and I know I was where you were at one point, and so here's a hand, I'll help you up. You don't have to trip over all the things that I tripped over. So that's I think in a nutshell what it means to me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How about you, Conroy?
Yeah, I kind of see maybe two different types of gaps. One is the one that Trevor's referring to, where, like if you've ever thought about learning as like you have a plateau, right? And then you have this period where it's kind of like steep learning curve, right? Then you hit another plateau. It's almost like that learning curve isn't continuous. There's like a gap there. And at some point when you get up to here, you kind of like, you give up or you roll back down or you drop through the gap or you just kind of like, and like I had mentioned at the beginning, that's kind of where I was. I had started going up here and then was about to give up. I was going to go like work at an Amazon fulfillment center or something like that. And then, they kind of reach and help you continue up that learning curve. And then I think there's also, I don't know, I'll call it maybe like a privilege gap where, I was, I've had technology my whole life. I've had access to technology. I had friends that were interested in it. A lot of the people that I went to college with looked like me, and it was I felt like I belonged everywhere. And so in this industry, I know there's a lot of conversation about diversity, and I think there's a gap there as well that you could address as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and for me personally, so like what you say resonates with me. And for me, my perspective of bridging the gap is from kind of like the socioeconomic type of perspective of bridging the gap, because like when like one thing is I didn't have anyone that was involved with tech in my life. It was just I was the one that was interested in it, and going through high school I didn't do good. I was not a good student whatsoever, and I was just lucky enough that I went into community college, and I just pursued it. I pushed for computer science, and there's that first initial gap of like, what do you do after high school, especially when you're not a good student. Like you could jump in, like people knowing that you can jump in through other avenues. So my avenue was community college. The other gap that had existed was, it's kind of a joke, and I think even the show Community makes light of this kind of joke, that the community college becomes this kind of void. No one ever escapes it, like, and there's that additional gap of going from community college to either to a job or to university. And I was lucky enough, and I had support, from family and my girlfriend and her family to go on to university and continue to go that way. And then after that experience of finally pushing through, getting through it, luckily financial aid and all those type of things were there for me to catch me and help me, was getting into the career of programming. And originally I jumped in wanting to be a web developer, but going through college, that gets washed out. You're just programming. And through happy accident, I ended up going from Java development coming out of school to doing Ruby on Rails development. And if it wasn't through a series of happy accidents, I would have be where I am here today in terms of like being introduced to different people. So I want to share my perspective and my experience and my knowledge of what I had to go through, and help others with telling them, the one way of to, like, you have to get a degree is the main one, is not the only way that you can jump into this industry. So yeah, that's what bridging the gap means to me.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's kind of amazing to be on a team like this where there's this awareness of skill development and accessibility to knowledge and to growth. There's this awareness towards diversity and equity, and there's this awareness towards whether it's socioeconomic, class, these different concepts, these different ideas, and that we truly do as a company believe that we are aware that we play a role in all three of those arenas, or we have the potential to play a role in all three of those arenas. And so it's just exciting to hear both of you, other team members, speaking from the heart about how true that is for you and what it means to you. It's awesome.
Thank you for the follow, Lily. But thank you, Trevor.
Yeah. My screen just went crazy.
So I wanted to get into, because I kind of spoke to this about gaps. For me, there was different gaps in my path to where I am here today. And right now, for today, we're focused on bridging the gap through your personal experiences, either mentoring or talking with other ones. What are some of those gaps that you think are like the walls, the challenges that prevent either a person from jumping into the career, or in Connor's perspective, jumping up to the next level in their career path? And
I don't know, you asking me?
Open question for both of you.
All right, Conroy, you go first this time. It's your turn.
All right. So it's one of the paradoxes of the modern era, right? They have so much information. You've got so many code schools online, I can't even list them all. YouTube channels out the wazoo, Twitch streams. There's so many ways to get into this industry, and yet at the same time, that's overwhelming. It's not always clear where to start. I've had friends and family members who have wanted to get into programming, and it seems like you can kind of just go in circles, and then at the same time, I think, Trevor, you had referred to this at the beginning, the industry itself has just become insanely nuanced. It's almost like when you start out in like a video game or something, you pick, a specific, type of character in a specific guild or whatever, and then that's you for the entire game. There's so many of those. Luckily, in real life, you can switch, right? You can decide, this isn't something I like anymore, I can switch over here. But if you've ever seen one of those skill trees, we talk about this sometimes internally at Zeal. What sort of skills are required for a modern full stack web developer? It's overwhelming when I look at it, and I'm fortunate enough to even know what the words mean. But it's still if you try to recall all that stuff to the front of mind at the same time, it's so much. So, and then that's not even taking into account the fact that if you publish a skill tree on Monday, by Friday, there's a new skill you need to add because a new framework has come out or something has changed or gone from version 2 to 3, and now it's a completely different way that you use it. I think I started a project on React Native for an iPad app, and by the end of that year, that code was pretty much not the way that people did stuff anymore. It's like the technologies had changed, and it's just
yeah.
So I brought, I have a family member who went to school for computer science and ended up bringing him on as kind of like an intern during that project. And then now he actually has that client himself. But I had to advise him, I'm like, look, this isn't what people do anymore. So you're learning these technologies, but if you were to go out and try to get a job and put this on your resume, they would be like, nah, it's not relevant anymore. It's like, yeah. So I think in a lot of ways, I know people have talked about the sort of, I don't know what the term that they've used was, but like the fatigue, I guess, in how rapidly things are changing. And I think a lot of ways that we can help each other bridge the gap to bring that full circle is, like at Zeal, we have at our morning stand-ups, we talk about interesting, and we bring, we talk about new technologies that have come out, or maybe we have our engineering meetings and we maybe demo some of the technologies. And it does just, everybody's just kind of helping each other move along just a little bit. And if you try to do that yourself, it is so overwhelming. So community helps a lot with that.
Yeah. So
Mm.
some things from the chat that I was highlighting is like, Lily's learning to program. She's still fairly new, and for her, she says the field is rapidly the field really is rapidly changing / increasing. It's terrifying for a new person. And Mary Jo says rapid change is crazy, and it's from from a new programmer's perspective, or someone trying to jump in, those constant changes, or what you built for React Native, no longer is the norm or is outdated. It's very intimidating and can be scary for someone to jump in, because I think Lily said a little bit earlier that it's you never feel like you're good enough to be a programmer.
So I would love to address that and say one of the things that I appreciated about my experience working with people at Zeal who are fantastic programmers is that none of us think that we're good enough. And, even the smartest people that I've worked with, we Google all day. We just throw the error in Google and we find out what the result is. I thought that was just me. I thought that was the imposter. And then I'm like, oh, this is what everybody does. Everybody is overwhelmed by how fast it's moving. Everybody has no idea what that error means and has to go find out. Like, if it weren't for, some of these shared tools like Stack Overflow, I don't know that software could be made these days, to be honest. So not just you.
I'll jump in real quick, and I'd love to ask Lily maybe to go a little bit deeper on what specifically is the fear that you feel in association with it, because I know overwhelm is a big one, but I'm wondering what else might be there. What is intimidating or fearful about the industry? I know I saw you mention about the idea of, I learned there are two pieces that you brought up that I thought are really important. One, I started taking a class on something and finish the class and nothing works because that's no longer a relevant tool, or it's broken now, or it's been upgraded so much that it doesn't work anymore. So that's one issue for sure. And then another issue that you mentioned is that you'll pick a tool and half the people that will talk bad about that tool and the other half will maybe sing its praises, right? And I think that that's the nature of every trade. Any trade where people are passionate about something that they're doing for work, they can become enamored by tooling, or when you take on a certain level of experience, you start to form opinions about how things should be done. And so sometimes a tool or a framework will violate those opinions, and then you think it's no good, right? So I think one of the things that was sort of drilled into me early on in this endeavor is the idea that it's not about the tool. It's about the outcomes that you're trying to reach and the people you're trying to serve with those outcomes. So there's a user, right, at the other end of that, and they're trying to accomplish something. And it's really comes down to is your ability to help them accomplish their outcomes. And so if you keep that in mind, I mean, you can pick up, HTML and some JavaScript. Am I still on?
Yeah.
What just happened? Okay. Sorry. Siri took over on my computer for some reason. Oh, great. Now she thinks I'm talking to her again. Okay. Well, my computer keeps taking over. I got to turn that off. But anyways, you can pick up, real basic tooling or tooling from 10 years ago. And if you can get the parts to work still, which is an issue at times, then you can still build something. I mean, we have applications that are running and serving people right now that maybe haven't been updated for 5 years, but they still work. And sure, there's probably some security things that need to be patched and whatnot, but it's serving an outcome. It's reaching that, still serving that purpose. Wow. So when it does that, do I cut out? Does my audio cut
Nope,
out?
you're perfectly fine.
Okay. It's so weird. So anyway, I apologize. But anyway, so that's the point that I was trying to make, is just, it's not the tool. Matter of fact, I'm building a clubhouse for my kids, and there's a lot of new experiences I'm having. I grew up, my father's a carpenter, and I grew up, doing projects here and there, but I never really took it that seriously. And so I am building this with my kids, and just the other day I looked down as I'm working, and there's a wrench that I love and a hammer that I love, and they're both my grandfather's, and they're tools. There are hammers that have magnets and different claws and all kinds of, they're weighted better. There are hammers that are way better than the hammer that I use, but this is a hammer that served my grandfather, and it's still working to serve the purpose. So sure, there's people that have opinions that'll say, dude, you need to upgrade that hammer. But the reality is it's still serving a purpose for me. I'm still being able to reach with it. So hopefully that can take some of the fear out of it. And everyone's going to have an opinion. You're going to start forming opinions too. And I think that's okay. But weighing those opinions and against, you've got to make some decisions and just move forward and be okay with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think Lily was saying that she chose, her response was, with my languages, I just dug my heels in and committed to JS and Python. I like them both for various different reasons, and so far so good. Just when I feel I made some headway in my learning, someone will ask me a question about a tool I never heard of, and I get discouraged. So I think based off what you're saying, Trevor, it's like you've dug into JS and Python, just stick with it, and don't be distracted about it, because I get that question all the time. So in my own personal Twitch channel stream, when I started, I did a lot of JavaScript, and when I started doing Rails, people would come in and be like, "Why Rails?" And my response would be, well, Rails is what I know. Rails is the tool I have to accomplish the thing I'm trying to build. Just like with your hammer, it's the thing I know. This is my hammer. I know exactly how it works. I'm not going to smash my thumb with it, So this is what I know, and this is the best tool for my job, and this is what I can do. If I try to adopt something else, it's going to take me a while. I'm going to have to spend some more money. Like, why spend more money when you have a perfectly good tool in your tool belt for it? And just stick with it, and just be you.
Totally. And there's another thing that's amazing, and that is, Conroy brought up the example earlier of like gaming avatars where you pick, I'm a wizard, and so you go through being a wizard, and if you want to be a warrior, you literally have to start the game over and pick that as your new avatar, right? That's not how it works in this, and that's a beautiful thing. So your learning stacks, and as you pick up, Python, for instance, you go deep on it and you start to master some of the principles. You really understand programming, language, sans language, like what it means to have a programmer's mind and how you think about solving problems. And all of that knowledge is portable. All of that knowledge different languages are primarily syntactically different. Many of the principles and many of the same concepts are intact. And then there will be areas where there are paradigm shifts, differences, right? So you have object-oriented, you've got functional, you've got these sort of like different paradigms. Those ones are harder to make the shift because you're learning, you're going more deeper down into a more foundational place where you are branching out from. But you have to understand that all of that learning that you're doing is helping you and is portable to other areas as well.
Yeah. Luckily, life's not a game, and you don't have specific slots for skills or jobs, and you could keep on tacking them on, and they synergize together.
There you go. But treat it like a game sometimes, take risks like if you were in a game. I mean, it's like, yeah, people play too safe sometimes because, and that's the other thing I see is a big hesitation because it's, you might fail and you might, or, there's this I know that sometimes in the past I've had this issue where I feel like an intelligent person, but for some reason, the first time I saw this concept, it was like right over my head. And then it was like, well, maybe this stuff's too hard. Maybe I need to just back it off and try something easier, different, but the reality is it was just the first time I saw it. It was the first time that concept entered my brain. And it took a while for my brain to start to make associations and work through it. And the right person offered me the right example that allowed me to understand it and see it. And then I was able to move forward and not look back. And now thinking about that a concept that at that point was like, whoa, intimidating. It's like, that is rudimentary and sounds so simple now. And, so yeah, but understanding that those same moments are going to happen. They still happen for me. I wasn't a business major. So the idea of going from being somebody who who designed software, built software, to somebody who runs a business, a software business, there's some massive other learning curves, and I'm still going through all of those. And like Conroy said, every day you wake up as a developer, if you crack open your news feed, you're going to see a bunch of new frameworks released, and some of those have paradigm shifts in them. And then some of those are going to be forced upon you, whether it's the company that you work at, or for us, we're a consultancy. So when we get hired by a company, we go in and we're trying to serve them. And oftentimes they'll be using some technologies maybe we haven't worked with before. And we just have to have the confidence that we have this knowledge base, we have each other as a team, and that we're going to be able to figure it out and move forward and provide a ton of value. So confidence is tough to get. So sometimes you kind of have to fake it until you get it. Fake it till you make it a little bit with confidence, would you say?
Yeah.
Totally.
Or pretend like you don't have a lack of confidence. Just pretend. There you go. Just pretend like you're not afraid and go forward with it anyways, and you'll thank yourself later.
So I wanted to touch on something that you had mentioned earlier, but to the confidence thing, I found there was a big difference when I stopped having confidence in being able to do something, and instead having confidence in being able to figure out how to do that thing, if that makes sense. So going into a new client's projects, it's a new domain, right? It's all new terms and jargon, and the app is laid out weird, and all sorts of weird things have been cobbled together. And it's not like, oh, I can do this. It's like, I'm going to be able to figure out how to do this because I've figured out how to do other stuff. And that kind of like, I don't know, helps me calm down. And it in this sort of virtuous cycle that actually helps you figure it out quicker because you're not so anxious about not knowing, right? It's okay to not know. It's okay to trust that you'll figure it out. That's been my experience. But Trever, something you had said about looking back on that thing that you thought was over your head, and then now it seems kind of rudimentary. To go back to bridging that gap, I think that's a very important thing to remind ourselves of. And I am constantly reminded of it when I do pair with people, the things that we take for granted, right? One of those you don't know what you know sort of things, where even as I don't know whether it's as we're working with people or we're communicating or whatever, the gaps that we can in that communication, wherever the person, our intended audience is, and where we are, and we're trying to get them right. There might still be a gap. They're like, yeah, but I don't understand. You're talking about how to get from D to F, and I don't know how to get from B to D. If that makes sense. So I don't know. It's helpful to go to become not good at stuff again, like to try something new and just remember how frustrating it is to start from zero. And I'm not saying like in programming, because like you said, Trever, you don't really start from zero, or Eric, you had said that too. It's not like you have to start over, but in real life, like learning how to do a new skill or trying a new, like I recently have been looking at cameras. I've never looked at cameras, and I have no idea what all these numbers mean and how they work together, and like ISOs and Fs and AP, whatever. I have no idea, right? And you like watch a video, and they're like, "Oh, and this camera's good because," and they start listing numbers and letters, and you're like, "Yeah, but I don't know what those means," and I haven't seen a single video that says this is what this number means, right? So I don't know. Just thinking about that when we're trying to communicate.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where you're served by surrounding yourself by people like Eric, for instance, who, if you've watched any of Eric's streams for a period of time, one thing you'll know for sure is there's no judgment. You're never wrong. Every question's valid. And because he's truly there to help, he's just, there's nothing that's too rudimentary. It's like, oh, okay, that's like, you'll ask a question and the only thing you'll see is you'll just see him searching for, okay, so that's where you're at, and so here's the next Lego piece, right? And so that's key is finding people to surround yourself with that care about your ability to take that next step and are helping providing those solutions, and we had we had a team member that recently moved on from the company. I guess it's been about 6 months or 7 months now. His name is Randy, and Randy's one of those guys. He's just the way his mind works. He's really smart. He retains a ton of information, and he's just got the kind of a beautiful mind, right? In how he thinks and strings things together, and is able to retain just so much information in his mind. And it's really easy to be intimidated by somebody like that because they have a brilliance to them, and working with them, it can be easy to feel a certain way, and yet Randy always saw you as a peer, right? He always talked to you like you were an equal, like you were a peer. And as such, when you'd say something, he wouldn't jump on you like you were dumb or wrong. He would, if anything, he might argue the point. He would argue it because you were equal in the conversation to him, right? And so that's you just want people who are vested in your ability to grow as a person, and I think that's important to find those people. And when you do, then you can model that behavior to others as well. Like Lily, you know things now that other people don't know, right? Because you've started down a path. And so you literally can do that for other people as well. Even though you feel like you're not very far down the path, you're a few steps ahead of somebody who hasn't started. So
yeah,
you've stubbed your toe a few times already, right? So
it's awesome because we just kind of rolled into the next progression of going from what is bridge the gap to how can we bridge the gap, and all the different ways we can do that. And one way that you highlighted that I do is and Randy did is like you treat people as equal and just ask questions. So if anyone can help bridge the gap, because there's different ways to do it. One way is just to treat other people as equal and educate people, and there's no dumb question. Like you hear that in school, but you have to continue to live that in life. There's no dumb question. Recently, when I was pairing with a coworker, we were looking at GraphQL, and we were looking at pagination versus regular kind of old school paging where you request, I want this page number and this amount, versus the concept of pagination where it's cursor based pagination. And first of all, he didn't know what cursor based pagination was. So I gave him a detailed explanation of that. So then I knew the progression of that question would be, why do we need to do this? And I gave him an example of think of your Facebook feed, of your Twitter feed. The old issue that used to happen is when you scroll too far down and you looked at a post, you come back and then immediately you're at the top of the of the feed because there was new posts coming in. And I explained to him cursor-based pagination. The cursor points directly at the last post you were looking at. So on Facebook, they know exactly where to scroll you down versus regular pagination. They didn't know what post you were looking at. They just knew what page of your book you were looking at. And he was like, oh, and it's those little things that make it kind of fulfilling and in helping others and making people's learning grow is just taking a moment to pause and try to explain things especially the way you think about it, because sometimes the way you think about it is very powerful. Instead of them having to look up the technical explanation of that, which we were looking at the time. Those are small things you can do to help bridge that gap. So I wanted to pose the question to both you guys, Trever and Conroy, and to the chat. Well, for you and Trever and Conroy, what are certain situations or certain ways would you suggest are ways to help bridge the gap? And then for chat, either that same question, but also for people that are currently active in the community and trying to learn and trying to get into software development, what are things that helped you become a better programmer and helped you enter into tech? We'll start with Conroy.
Oh, I was gonna have Trevor go first this time. I was gonna still think about it.
I mean, we could slot. If you want to take a moment, we can ask Trevor. It's not a big deal.
No, it's cool. So I think I already forgot the questions. So I before the stream, I was thinking about like how do I bridge the gap today, and I don't really. Sometimes I work with people, on our clients' teams, and there's a sort of mentoring there. Sometimes I do work with other people on projects, but I don't do it as much as I really would like to be honest, because as I said, I'm very grateful for, in my 15 plus years, how many times people have come alongside and been patient with me. And I do know that's it's definitely something I would like to pay forward. So I don't know. I throw it out there. If anybody has any suggestions, I updated my Upwork profile yesterday with they have a category for mentorship, like code tutoring or something like that. So we'll see if anybody reaches out there. I've signed up on some of the other like Clarity sites or like code. Airpair is not a thing anymore. I don't know. I just found a couple and put my name on there, but nobody's contacted me. But I've had people in the past reach out and just say, I'm just stuck on this thing, and banging my head against the wall. And my favorite phrase with programming is it's banging your head against the wall until the wall breaks, right? It's knowing that the wall will break because it always does. There's a sort of magic or faith around that. I'm very superstitious when it comes to computers, not in real life, but with computers. If you ever say, I'll be done in 15 minutes and I'll head home, it will be at least 2 hours guaranteed. You just never say that out loud to anybody. When they ask what time will you be done, you say, if I answer it, it changes. So I don't know. I would be open to suggestions on how I could do a better job of bridging. And that's for the gap in, and I guess the learning or the career path. As far as for privilege or equity, I don't know that I'm taking active steps there either. I guess it's just like realizing when you're in a situation where, again, you're just surrounded by people that are like you and asking the question, why? What can we do about that? But at the moment, I'm alone in a room. But no, in all seriousness, yeah. I don't know. I'm open to suggestions.
Did you want to highlight that, Eric? You want to highlight that comment?
Oh, with the Lily? Yeah. So the encouragement. So Lily was saying the encourage. So for her, the encouragement of the LC team, which is the Live Coders team, which is a group of Twitch streamers that are development streamers and creatives. team members has been great, and the willingness to share resources has been absolutely amazing. InstaFuff has a whole library of technical books I help him run, and being able to lend people technical books has been really fun. So I think that's one way to kind of like, share your knowledge is like just join a community of coders, whether it's locally or whatever, even if it's just purely online, joining a Discord, a Slack community, and just being there and just watching people have questions or actually go on Stack Over. Like it sounds cliche, but even Stack Overflow, like throwing your expertise behind answering questions in a more thoughtful manner than has been happened in the past on Stack Overflow could go a long way too.
Yeah, totally. So can you reframe the question again, Eric?
So what are strategies for you? What are strategies that you've used to help bridge the gap? And if you have any, from your personal experience, what has been effective for you personally to help bridge your own personal gaps?
Yeah. I would say one of the primary ones is hunger, like to just be hungry for it, right? And my wife, when somebody asked, so she's been asked, where did he go to school for that, and by a friend, right? And her answer is hilarious to me. She says he went to the Chair and a Half University, and they're like, "What is that?" Well, he just sat in the chair and a half in our living room for like, a year, and that's how that's the university he went to. And the reality is like which is funny to me that that's her perception of how that went. But at the end of the day, you've got to want to you got to set your sights on being someplace, and then you've got to just start moving in that direction and just be hungry for it, right? To the point where you wake up in the morning and you just want to get started. And then, like Conroy said, it might be dinner time and then another hour accidentally passed by because you're just so in it. I think that is such a key piece. And I've analyzed that a lot. Like how do you come about being, hungry or getting into that state? And I think that really comes down to being really in touch with why you're doing it, what's important about it to you. I think that this industry, this job, or any job really, if it's about financial or economic impacts, and that is your primary motivating factor for making a move in a direction, I think that it's going to be hard. It's going to be a struggle to move up in that skill, just because you're not motivated from like internally towards this thing. You're motivated internally towards something else, which is the financial impact. So if you could, that's, I think, for me, figuring that piece out, man, my growth was exponential when I'm doing something that I'm just enthralled with. So that's one piece. Another one is I definitely do analysis paralysis, and this is kind of something that Lily and Mary Jo? Yeah, were sort of pointing out earlier, and that's just the options and the menu of options, and then it doesn't ever feel like the right thing, and the reality is just do some research, figure out a good path, and then just go and build something, make something, have a purpose in the thing that you're building, and you'll learn so much through that project. I mean, there's different types of learners, right? I found out about myself that I have, I'm a hybrid learner. So I actually learn best when I'm learning through multiple different learning disciplines. So there's visual, audio, and kinesthetic, and I learn best when I'm doing two of those at one time. And then kinesthetic is where it really sets in. So if I'm taking notes, that helps me a ton. Reading books, my ability to retain information and really like think about it and internalize it went up exponentially when I started writing in the books that I'm reading, and underlining and circling and highlighting, and like I just interacted with the book physically. That helped me a ton. So so I think that being, finding that hunger within you for developing yourself in whatever it is that you're working towards, and then B, putting it into action even before it feels like you are ready for it. This is another thing I see with students specifically. If you've been a student, if you've gone through college, for instance, you've effectively had like 16 to 18 years of schooling in your life. Like that's like you've been a student learning for that long. Or if you decided to go back to school and you ended up getting in that rhythm of learning, it can be daunting and tough to transition from being in a mode of learning to a mode of action, a mode of taking that and putting it into action, into creating something useful in the world, as opposed to consuming and learning and upgrading, right? So I think that, to me, doing it in bite-sized chunks, learning something, putting it into action, that helps with the integration process, and it also helps you produce something, and that producing something is self-perpetuates more action, because you're proud of something, you have something to show for your effort, and you're learning and you're leveling up. So those are some things that I would throw out there. That those are things you asked about my personal experience. Those are things that helped me and were massively impactful in my processes of learning anything, really. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. I have one part question, follow-up question for that from Core Bob. What's a chair and a half?
That one's easy. So picture a chair in your living room, and then picture an oversized chair. It's not quite a love seat, but it's not a chair. It's like a chair and a half, right? That is a chair and a half. It's like an oversized chair. So there you go. It was in the corner of our living room, and I would just be there with my laptop in my lap for all day. And for weeks, months, I don't know, and chair and a half university.
So I wanted to follow up based off my personal experience with what you were saying about kind of like that passion. I think one other way that it took me a while to realize this, that you can help others, because this is what ended up helping me continue to have that passion, or to get that passion back, is also help people on the mental health side of things in technology. We get so wrapped up with like, here's like some advice for books, for languages and understanding, but there's also it still roots down to your mental health, and talking to them about those ideas that it's okay to fail. It's okay to not know. Don't overwork yourself. All those different things fuel that drive, because I experienced burned out, and I think most of us professionally have experienced burnout, but new people that are jumping into the industry, or that are just new to programming, they don't know about burnout yet, or they might not even realize that they're experiencing burnout. So being able to also just talk to people from a more personal level and mental health level is another way we can help everyone, each other, whether it's new programmer or highly experienced programmer, to continue to keep that passion alive, and to continue to learn, grow, and help others. Because if they can't learn or grow, and they can't help others if they can't help themselves. So you need to help them help themselves with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, burnout's an interesting thing. I think that there, especially early on in this phase of integration of something new, I think a self-imposed burnout, meaning like you just are so enamored and so in it that you push it, you're just in it, and you can't get out of it, and you stay in it. I don't know that it's a bad thing, as long as you're able to mitigate the burnout when it happens. I think externally imposed burnout is not good. And that's something that we have to be cognizant of and be able to stand up to and say, you know what, this is burning me out. It's stressing me out or whatever, it's creating this, and be able to communicate that and not be afraid of potential repercussions, because you have to take care of yourself before you can take care of anybody else. So you have to be not in a burned out state in order to serve other people. And so protecting yourself against burnout in whatever environment you're working is super important. But early on, when you're digging into something and you feel that drive to just be in it and stay in it, like, I don't know that that's a bad thing. So yeah, again, like I said, so long as you don't put yourself in a position where you hate the thing that you're doing, you know, because I definitely reached a burnout phase. You know, I mean, I wanted to burn that chair in half. I wanted to. I was ready to, you know, like at one point I was just like, man, I can't even look at that anymore. But what led up to that feeling was such a tremendous amount of growth. Like if I didn't throw myself at it completely, I wouldn't have gotten where I got. And I might have fell out of it sooner because of maybe it was a financial need, or B, maybe it was getting involved with something else, or C, it was, just taking your eye off the prize. And that's something too about motivation and some of these other things that pull us through. They're not infinite supplies of energy, right? They're finite supply. And this, your desire and your engagement in this thing, that hunger that you have for it, it may not last forever. So eat it up while you have it, and go and get as much out of that experience as you can. I guess that's what I throw out there, is like, in regards to burnout. You were talking about burnout, and I think burnout in general in workplace is not good. And that's something that I think at Zeal we take really seriously. We try to make sure that no one's putting themselves in that position. We try to guard against clients a lot inadvertently putting us in that position. It's never no one's ever shooting to burn you out. But I don't know what your burnout level is, and you don't know what mine is. So we have to be good at protecting ourselves.
Yep. All right. Go ahead, Conroy.
Wanted to say one quick thing about burnout. So a lot of my career has been working in startups, and I didn't even know that burnout was a thing, because that's just the culture. You just keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing, and it's normal to feel like that. And then at Zeal, at some point, I think I raised this during one of the company group retros, I had to apologize. I'm like, I just realized I read the Wikipedia article, and they've got 6 symptoms, and I have all of them. So I'm officially burned out, y'all. And I apologize for, because it changes your behavior and the way that you see the world and how you interact with it. And it's not just like being fatigued after going where you hit a wall and you're like, oh, I can't take another step. It's like saying, I hate running. I've always hated running. I don't even know why I'm running, and I hate everybody who runs. It's just yeah, no. Yeah. It's just you're in a mental place, and it's a normal thing, right? And it doesn't mean that you hate running. It means that you need to, I don't know, Trevor, you were saying about the external pressure versus the internal. Yeah, I mean, I have to remind myself to chill. Sometimes I look back at, I try to cram so much stuff into a day or into a week, and it's just why? Yeah, if it's fun and it's passionate and you can't wait. It's like if you're reading a really great book, right? You can't wait to read that next chapter, and you stay up to 3 or 4 in the morning reading the book. There's still going to be consequences for that. You're still going to be tired the next day.
Yes.
But if you remind yourself hey, the reason I'm reading this book is because it's enjoyable, and it's going to be enjoyable if I read it over 3 days or over 3 weeks, right? And the whole point is to enjoy it. So unless it's when the Harry Potters dropped and you had to read it before everybody spoiled it for you. But yeah, so just reminding yourself, the reason that you're doing something is to have fun and enjoy it. And so if you're not doing that, then why are you doing it?
Yep. And I was looking, I'm seeing Lily and Mary having this really great conversation about burnout and company cultures and things like that. And we have this in this industry. It's stacked upon stacked. So first of all, here where we live in America, there's this notion of at least a 40 hours is like full-time work. And then, if you're really after it, it's like more like 60 to 80 or 100 hours a week to be successful, right? To be successful. And then you stack on top of that the tech Silicon Valley startup culture and energy, which is basically every waking minute of your life. And that is so hard for us to combat personally. I know that, I think as anybody in this culture, it's really hard to push back against it, knowing that that's not a healthy place to be as an individual. Individually, it's not a healthy place to be in that space. It's not good for you. The unfortunate thing is that there is a side benefit, and that is for a period of time, it can produce a massive result, right? And that massive result can be addictive. And that's how we end up with people like Elon Musk, right? Who, if you've ever seen or read anything about how his day is and how it has been for the last 20 years, it's insane. It is the guy works every minute of every day, and he sleeps a handful of hours a night, right? And that's it. And that's his whole life. And then he sets that bar and that expectation for his companies as well. And so at the end of the day, there's a benefit that happens in society as a result of that massive focused effort, but it's at a cost. And so for yourself, you just have to, and this is, for me, being a business owner, there's all kinds of goals you have that are different than the day-to-day, right? And it's growth, and there's, size of company or whatever it may be, revenue or number of people served or whatever your metrics are that you're tracking. And it's really easy to decide that, you want those numbers to be big and you want to grow. Oh, I think maybe my camera, did my camera just go out?
Although you have a really good pose.
Okay. I do have a good pose, so we'll just keep that pose for a second. But even with that in mind, it's it's at what cost? And so you have to balance the outcomes against the what you're putting out there and what you're striving for, and what is okay with you. And we're all different, biologically, chemically, and emotionally, and maturity, and all of these different pieces, and age, right? I know that I'm a lot more patient of a person than right? And so looking at all of those different pieces and weighing them against each other to make the right choice for yourself, and that choice will change. Seasons are different. So, I immersed myself, and now I have kids. And so I set boundaries around how much immersion I have in work, because I have kids and I have different part of my life. I have a wife, I have children, I have these other people in my life, these other dynamics to life. So the idea of just immersing full immersion and almost total selfishness, that's not part of my life. And I have to create a balance. So as we move through life, those things all change. That chemistry changes as far as what makes sense when. And I think journaling, writing, I think doing a bunch of reading, and I meditate. That's something else. I meditate and I journal, and I think those are two things that have helped me a ton through this learning process. So, and continue to, as far as that balance goes, where that balance is in my life. So I'm going to fix my camera.
Well said. Thank you for that, Trevor. So we're drawing to a close for our conversation on bridging the gap. So I wanted to kind of just recap things and we've talked about a lot of big things about bridging the gap and what things that we found effective and what we can do. I just wanted for each one of us is to talk about maybe like a couple of really small things that you feel like could be really helpful for for yourself or for others to do in their day to day that would bridge that gap with other people. I can start that off, and I kind of touched on some of it already, but just just one thing is when you're approaching someone that has a question. If well, first of all, put yourself in a situation where you're around where people can ask questions. For myself, I am part of the Twitch Discord community, and there's people that always are in there asking questions. So I'm there to be able to help answer questions or elaborate or help out. I'm part of some other Discord communities to help either share knowledge, articles, or or my expertise. And then also when approaching other people, just treat them as, like Trevor said, treat them as your equal, and just there's no dumb question. You should feel comfortable just explaining the whole thing to them. Those are like a couple small things you can do, I feel like, to help bridge the gap. And anyone can do this. Don't be afraid that you're not knowledgeable enough. If every time you learn something new, there's someone below you that doesn't know that, and you can give your knowledge. You can share your knowledge with them. So that's what I can contribute.
Love that. Yeah. Well, and this is both a blessing at the same time. So when I was entering into this industry and on my path of learning, there were not a lot of resources online. And it was hard to come by good current education in software development, and now it's not. Matter of fact, now it's like new courses every day on the brand new stuff you can find on YouTube or on some of these Skillshare, or all of these different places, right? And so that is a blessing. It's amazing how easy it is to find knowledge, and it's a little harder to vet that knowledge. So finding some sources that are good, are suggested to or trusted is key. But there's a curse in there too, which is just that overwhelm of, like, when you do that search, all these possibilities come up, and am I looking at the right one? And is this the right way to do it? And that overwhelm can be hard to deal with. And so one thing, is to just be okay with the decisions that you make, and know that it's the right decision right now, and it might be the wrong decision later, right? So a different decision, you'll make a different decision later. And that's just, I think we have to make choices in order to make progress. So there's so many options, and it's so amazing. So again, surround yourself with people who can help give you the advice of where to go and where to look and what to look at, and then just get started.
Awesome. Conroy.
Yeah. No, I'll echo what you were saying, Eric, too, that just putting yourself in places, being in places where others can ask questions. So I've always appreciated you doing the streams. I have a secret Twitch channel that I've tried streaming on before. No viewers, but yeah, doing live programming is pretty cool. There was I can't believe I forgot his name, actually. There was a person even like 5 years ago that was doing like live React programming, and that's actually where I learned to React. I would watch his videos. It was pretty cool. So yeah, I appreciate that. And then I think of it sometimes as like breadcrumbs. So like, the Hansel and Gretel, as you're walking, you just kind of drop little things that other people can follow. So I used to be better at this habit or this practice, but if I found a solution to an error that, it wasn't immediately Googleable, I don't think I've ever used that word, Googleable, just writing something really quick and just like putting up, like, you paste the stack trace of the error and you paste the solution and press publish, right? It doesn't even have to be a lot of these blog posts, the first 5 paragraphs are just like, late morning in August when I ran into this error, and you're just like, I don't care. What is the solution? I don't know if I still right that way.
No niceties. Leave those out.
Yeah. It's no place, for personality. But yeah, so being better about dropping those breadcrumbs, because it is of everybody doing that, right? That kind of has built this corpus of knowledge that has helped everybody else level up. So I guess it's a mindset, and this is something that, like I was saying, I can struggle with, where I appreciate all that I've benefited from in my life to get me to this point, and I feel like I could be doing more on helping others. So it's that mindset of not just consuming, but also creating, and not just like taking, but also giving. It's like it has to be that sort of back and forth. I know that on the internet, what is it, like 1% contributors, and then there's like 99% lurkers, or whatever the actual percentages is. But yeah, so being one of the contributors, and then to like the privilege gap, I think it still is when you're in situations where you realize that you're surrounded by people like yourself. Ask the questions of why. Is it about perception? Is it about messaging? Is it about inclusivity? Like, what is it, and how could we do a better job at that? And that, I think that's being asked in a lot of different ways in organizations, but it's still not a solved problem yet.
Yeah, no, and it's huge. That's a big one. And we're recording this, doing this live stream on Juneteenth, right? June 19th, and that's a massively important day here in this country. And here we are, so looking at each other as 3 white guys, although, Eric, we have different heritage backgrounds, right? And you've talked about being from different cultures, and that impact on your life depending on which culture you're identifying with and which group. And I think that those are some really hard conversations to have, right? They're uncomfortable, but it's something that I think it would be good for us to start having. I think it would be really good for us to have maybe a live stream in the near future, where we be brave and venture out a little bit in some of those topics that are less comfortable for us to talk about, because they're really important to this mission of bridging the gap, and they're really important to our ability to be to experience a more holistic success than just helping somebody, level up their career. So
Yeah.
There's a challenge, Mr. Guzman.
So I guess this is kind of rolling off what you said. I know we're kind of trying the stream to a close, but I had a conversation with Adam Cuppy, our co-founder, about kind of like this topic of race and economics, and I've talked to him that in the past and still currently, and I'm not sure if this goes with other people of color, that it becomes difficult to bridge the gap, because in order to bridge the gap, you need time to lend to other people. And for myself, sometimes it's difficult to lend time, because I always feel like I need to be working, because right now, and it still feels that way, I feel like I'm living the dream. No way did I ever think what I am doing now, and enjoy doing something that I genuinely love and getting paid, getting good paycheck for it and everything. I never thought I'd be at this point, like truly. And it can go away at any moment. And that's the feeling, because, growing up, you see my family struggle, and then, like my brother, he's in a whole different, he's in business and business administration, stuff like that, and those people get laid off all the time. He's always switching jobs. So for me, I feel like at any moment the dream can end, and I have to struggle to find another job, or I have to get a huge pay cut, and everything I'm trying to build up my life for will go away. So it makes it very difficult to try to spend time into the community, because you're so busy trying to make a life for yourself and a life for your family, or trying to make a life so you can have a family, that you don't spend enough. You can't spend it. You feel like you have to help yourself before you can help others, because if you start helping others and everything goes away, you can no longer help them. And it's
Mm,
like, it's, like, I've had to struggle with that yeah, things should just go away, and
mm,
so it's, being okay with where you're at and being comfortable and being stable. And I guess it goes into those kind of like those privileges of, some people have, of being comfortable, and they know, like, oh, if things go bad, that's okay. It's like, for other people, especially people of color, if things go bad, that could, you can lose your house, you can lose your car, you can lose a lot of different things. And that goes for me. I'm not sure if it goes for other people, but it be interesting to have those conversations, like you're saying, with other people of color, to see if how we all relate with each other, and and the challenges that we face. Because I've been blessed that I live in Southern California and a predominantly Hispanic community, so I haven't had to face a lot of racism or anything like that. But there's other kind of like other cultural things that have impacted of how I live my life and how I've grown up to here. So it'd be great to have that type of
yeah,
conversation in the future.
definitely. Well, and so maybe again, just challenging to say, hey, can we put together a panel of people that is representative and a diverse group of people to start having some more of these conversations on our stream, and that it seems important towards this mission. So I think that would be worthwhile for us to do. I think if there's anything that I've learned, this is something I just learned through. I've learned through life, and there's been a lot lately that has hit me, and that is just there's so much that you don't know, right? And you can't know what you don't know. You need somebody else to point out that you don't know something sometimes, and I think that is, man. I've learned a lot of things I don't know recently that have been just eye opening, and a lot of it revolves around sort of these conversations, and I think that having those conversations is healthy. It's not comfortable for some, or most maybe, and it's hard because it's hard to say I don't know, or come to terms with something, realize something. It's hard to decide that I feel like, oh, I'm a good person and I care about people, I love everyone, but that doesn't mean that I don't experience these biases or these advantages or privileges or these different things. And what does that mean to me, and how do I work and deal through those? So I know that we're straying off topic now. I'd love for that to be a future conversation that we have at some point. So let's continue talking about that and figure out how to make that happen.
Yeah, I agree. And so if anyone in the chat wants, loves to hear that type of content, or, has, wants to participate, yeah, just let us know, reach out. But yeah, that brings, a good end to the stream, and, a future thing that we're gonna try to organize and put together. So, and if you know someone, anyone in the chat, or anyone, I guess, listening in general, of that would be a great person to have on that sort of panel and have a discussion about. Reach out to me, reach out to the Coding Zeal Twitter, or Trever, any one of us, and reach out to us so that we can try to organize it and get a diverse group of people, and to have a really good conversation about this stuff. So that brings an end to it. Conroy, Trever, do you have any closing remarks as we're finishing up?
Just thank you for hosting. Thanks for inviting me to be on the stream. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I hope my contributions have helped somebody. And Eric, to your point about having time to contribute, I think I appreciate that you have been contributing to the community for so long, and I do believe that that is a very valuable aspect of yourself and of your career that will serve you, is serving you now, and will continue to serve you in the future. So, as far as building up Maslow's pyramid, I think the stream is part of it. I think you're giving back to the community is definitely part of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
I echo that entirely. Matter of fact, being a solid developer was definitely key to us being able to hire you. But the work that you do and how you do it and how you go about doing it was the thing it was just like, we have to do what we can to have him on our team because he's incredible at what he does. And so honor you, appreciate you for putting these streams on. I really appreciate, the participation in the chat. I've been reading all of it, and it's so thoughtful and so engaged. And I just appreciate all the people who are participating in the conversation, and would love to maybe have conversations with some of you in the future as well.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. And I always end this at the end of the stream. Just reach out to us if you just want to have conversations, if you want to hear anything, any more content, any new stuff, if you want to do some pair programming, any sorts of stuff. This channel is all about learning and growing together and just, bridging that gap like we're talking about today. So if you want to be a part of it, if you have any ideas that you want to see, technologies you want to try out or want us to try out, let us know, and it'll be a lot of fun. So, all right. Thank you, Trever and Conroy. We'll just transfer out of here. And now you're clear to exit if you guys want to. They can't hear you anymore. Yeah. All right, everyone. Have a good one, everyone. All right, everyone. Yeah, so have a good one. Bye. And let's see who we can raid over to. Unless you have suggestions, I'm going to pick someone from the Live Coders team because I am biased, but it is a good collection of quality streamers to raid over to. So let's figure out who we can do that. Let's say we got Anthony writes code, writing Python. I'm getting a bunch of ads, which is mildly frustrating. Let's raid over to Cyber Barbie. She is a phenomenal person. And learning to code. I believe she's already a front engineer, and she wants to get better at backend. So she's doing that with Python. So it's a great segue into what we're trying to do. All right, so that should be doing it. Thank you, everyone, and have a good Juneteenth and weekend. And I'll see you on the various social medias. Until next time, bye, everyone.